Okay, thank you for joining us this morning for our live webinar targeting and talking about the digital building blocks for modular construction. Hopefully today we can walk through some of the challenges faced by the sector, and I can explain how Archdesk as a business and as a solution are helping the industry tackle those challenges and provide solutions to many of the problems faced. So, looking at today's industry, some of the statistics around that and the growth of the modular sector, many of the benefits that modular construction brings to projects, some of the challenges around the industry, and then we can touch upon some of the Archdesk solutions to help tackle those challenges. We can discuss, therefore, how Archdesk can help. I can give you an introduction to Archdesk as a business and our tool and how we go about providing our solution, which is very unique. And then I can dive into the product and give you a brief presentation and demonstration, touching on a few areas of the product to show how our solution can start to tackle those solutions head on. So looking at the industry as a whole now, we can see that it's an industry that is continually growing in a very healthy rate. But in comparison to other parts of the world, the UK are kind of late adopters of this technology in regards to modular building. As you can see, in comparison to countries that are far more early adopters of this, such as Sweden, etc., where they've got 45%. Looking at the benefits of modular construction, so it can bring huge time savings to the industry, particularly in the production and delivery of this type of building. It can be far more sustainable than traditional building methods and materials, and you can end up with a much higher quality product. It can be far more cost effective as well by putting together the construction side of things in-house, in factory, and transferring to site for quick builds. And also for the consumer or the client, it can offer far more bespoke options than traditional home building in particular. So with those benefits in mind, where are there the challenges for the industry? One of them particularly is finding the right trades, the right skill set of people on site. Particularly, this is more of a UK issue than other parts of Europe, perhaps, that are earlier adopters of this way of building. But certainly around finding the right skill set of crew to be able to successfully assemble these modular units on site. Asset and resource management, therefore, is one of the ways in which this issue could be potentially tackled. Finding the right people, applying the right assets and machinery to site to be able to successfully deliver and assemble modular units. The nature of delivering and building modular construction, it has to be done quickly and effectively, without issue, without problem, without delay. Therefore, having experienced people on site that understand these processes and have been through them before is key to the success of these types of projects. So therefore, without being obvious, having people on site that aren't experienced and don't understand these processes is going to greatly create lots of issues and potential huge delays through the mistakes that are going to be made from inexperience. Now, one of the other challenges is integrating these modules on site as well. Again, it goes down to planning, process, understanding how to sort of manage the schedule of how these things are put together, and the order in which they need to be assembled. And, if we schedule and program manage this to the minutiae detail of these types of projects, is going to give it a chance to go smoothly without any issues. And one of the other challenges is also transporting the modular units. Obviously, delivering material to site is a lot easier than delivering entire walls and entire sections of buildings to hard to get to sites. So that's one of the challenges, not just driving these solutions there on big flatbed lorries, but also craning them in across other buildings, the health and safety that goes around that, the permits, closing roads off, etc., etc. It's an extreme challenge to even get the materials to site for modular construction. And I think by having the right project controls in place and the planning goes a long way to making sure that this is all very much covered off, rather than getting to sites trying to deliver it, and you obviously can't get under a bridge, for example, with one of the lorries. Everything would need to be planned and mapped out almost to a military level operation to make sure that you can get the actual modular units to the site in which they're going to be constructed on. Now, for me, using our asset resource and management, we can help identify the right people, the best trained people that are going to be mapped to the upcoming projects. Utilising our scheduling and programme management goes a long way to addressing a lot of the challenges on site around having a schedule in place, making sure every task is done right, making sure every module is assembled in the right order, etc. Again, goes a long way to rectifying and eliminating potential errors, and having a proper program in place with planning around that control over what parts of the modular units are going to site at what time, what route they're going to take, how they're going to be actually delivered to difficult sites to get to. Again, go a long way to addressing those problems. More challenges faced. Again, although there's stringent standards that modular construction have to adhere to, which will be different to the more sort of, I guess, traditional building methods, there are many standards that are particularly driven in home building by NHBC for modular housing construction. But as it's a relatively sort of new-ish method, some of the processes haven't been necessarily standardized. People are very much working individual. There's not necessarily standards across the whole industry that people follow. It's more company by company that have their own way and methods of working. So having a bit more standardization across the way in which each project and every project operates and flows goes a long way to addressing this problem. So responsibility for handling the callbacks for modular units can be ambiguous. Is it the on-site teams that will be responsible for some of the issues, or essentially the manufacturer if they're bringing in subcontractors to assemble the units on site from a business that's more manufacturing these in a factory? Who's going to be responsible when things go wrong? That's a big problem as well. So having on site managed properly and having a system that can track all this back to where the problem originated from with correspondence goes an awful long way to identifying where things are going wrong and who's responsible. Can prevent long legal issues and arguments and disputes which are costly to the project and the individuals involved. Obviously that can eat into profit. So having digital forms mapped to certain processes to capture all this information on site, make sure things are signed off as safe, make sure things and sections are signed off as completed and approved. If things go wrong with that section later on, who approved it, who signed it off as safe, who signed it off as complete. having all these forms and this paperwork in place digitally is far quicker and easier to locate, utilize, identify than it would be in a paper format. And also, the argument is, can modular construction deal with the much larger scale of projects? So typically modular construction between, say, 10 to maybe a couple of hundred units at a time, but they're not necessarily taking on sites across the UK with home builds in the thousands of units at present. There are a few examples of these projects, but typical companies are operating in far smaller unit size on the sites that they are developing. Now, one of the arguments is, can they scale up to those large projects? Well, the challenge certainly is going to be around the material they're going to need, the factory, the personnel, the size of site to actually physically put these together. Obviously, transporting, let's say, 10 units to a particular site can be challenging with the costs of maybe craning it in, like I mentioned earlier, transporting units, but transporting 2,000 units to site, is the cost even going to be scalable on being able to even deliver it? Well, our dashboard reporting, or dashboard reporting in general, and insight reporting into how you can scale this up, you can start to see trends, you can start to identify your previous project success and see how this replicates size, so you can start to take on bigger, larger projects with the confidence that you can easily gather the right and enough materials at the right costs to make it profitable, whether the limits of your, say, factory space or unit space where you're actually putting these modular units together can cope with that growth, as well as the personnel you're going to require to actually physically put these together in the right time scale. So reporting is a massive thing to be able to understand whether this scaling can even occur within your business and the industry. And from an Archdesk point of view, standardizing your workflows across not just your operational side or the way your projects operate, but also around the flow of conversations around your financials and cost for each project is certainly a huge thing that we do within Archdesk to help support businesses who need to go through that standardization and get a grip of the way their processes operate across the businesses and their projects. Mentioned digital forms. This is a big thing we can do, and put this through several workflows and approval flows to make sure information, particularly on site, is collected in the right format with the right level of detail, signed off by the right individuals. It goes through the right approval flows and the right processes as a document. So once it is submitted, saved and approved, that document's easily to hand to utilize later down the line to prove, particularly when things have gone right and wrong on site, who was responsible, when it was signed off, what the process was, what information was gathered at that point. So when things do go wrong, it's quite easily identifiable by looking back at the information, which is very much to hand. So that goes an awful long way, particularly to support health and safety teams and anybody on site who's responsible for gathering that information and reporting. And our dashboard reports that we can offer businesses is an extremely strong part of our dashboard reports are extremely personalized and can be highly configured to pull out the information from project data and present it not just project by project, but also give you a company-wide view of how things are operating. A level of trend analysis can be applied to certain dashboards. They can be made for performance, viewing work in progress, monitoring teams, identifying where things are going right and wrong. It's an extremely strong part of our solution. So moving on, how does Archdesk do all this? Well, I believe what makes Archdesk unique, particularly, is around how our system has been broken down into building blocks. So it's not an off-the-shelf solution with 1,000 buttons thrust at you as a client of ours, and you'll only ever really press 100 of them. We will look to create a far more tailored version of our system for our clientele. And through, here's an example of a number of features we could potentially offer. We'll go through a discovery process with you to understand what you're going to need from us to be successful initially and later down the line in the future. The building blocks perhaps we don't need or you don't need initially. We can take out the conversation and focus on building you a system out of everything that we have remaining for you. So we will therefore look to configure this to your requirements, utilize this functionality to inbuild some of your process into this system. So when this system is then delivered, it looks like a system that's been built for you and your business. It's a highly consultative process, very led by our implementation team during the delivery stage, but our sales consultants will certainly work with you to uproot where things are going right and wrong across your business, where you're experiencing perhaps loss in revenue or errors, delays on site, and we will look to see how our system can address those problems and provide you a platform to grow going into the future and leaving a lot of these problems behind. And really that's the experience with Archdesk that's very different to other businesses. We're looking to drive your business forward as a whole and not just deliver a piece of software to make things a little bit easier. It's a far deeper experience working with us than that. We want to future-proof our solution for you for many years ahead and really understand not just how your business operates so we can map our system to it, but also drive a lot of best practice, return of investment, improvements, and also try and align what we're doing alongside your deeper business goals. So if you're looking to for some sustainability and to de-risk your business because it's perhaps not operating effectively at the moment, it's something we can certainly work on. And likewise, if you're looking to grow your business, take on more prestigious projects, take on more complex work, that's another big part of what we can help you achieve. I'd highly suggest if you are interested, get in touch after this webinar and set up a meeting with one of our consultants to start walking you through some of this process and have an open, non-committal discovery session around how you're working as a business and how we can help you out. Even if you feel that you're being successful, I guarantee once we get into the nitty-gritty of how you're operating as a business, there will be room for improvement. There'll be things that you've not even thought of that are causing you issues. That's what we can drive and deliver for you as one of our clients. Okay, so let's have a look at the software now. So I'm logging into the system via Google Chrome. The first area that I've come into here is our dashboard reporting area. Now, dashboard reports, as I mentioned earlier, is a highly configurable part of our business to really pull the data together to give you a view of what you need to support you within your role in the business and in construction in general. So look, if you're a business leader, you may potentially want a far higher level overview of the financials and how your business as a whole is operating over a particular time frame where, you know, where you can easily see where you've got work coming up and the value of that potential work. You can see how you're performing from a profit margin point of view up until year to date, perhaps, on all the projects that you've won. And we can also show you where you've overspent on projects, where things aren't as profitable as you'd hope they would be, and then give you the opportunity to drill down into why that's occurred. We are very much an end-to-end system, unlike a lot of solutions out there that are focused on projects once you're on site. We want to manage the early stage from initial inquiry coming into your business and that initial conversation with a potential client looking to utilize your services. So we can manage those leads coming into your business, those opportunities. We're not, as I said, just a project-based system. We're looking to, you can raise us as a job within the system and follow it all the way through to the end result, regardless of whether you get awarded that work or not. There's very early stage planning and tender information if you're, and negotiation information with clients before the job's awarded and becomes live from your point of view. All that information can be managed, saved and recorded, and also feed into dashboards to highlight here where projects have been not just won, but also lost, and why they were lost, and who you're up against, what the decision was, as feedback to perhaps rectify future bids for work. So from right early stage going through contract negotiation and identifying and putting together the costings of jobs as well. We're very strong at providing a solution to carry out that whole phase as well, before we even get into the pre-construction planning side of things, and then live on site actually carrying out the work. So it's a strong solution to help manage even materials coming into your business that might be utilized in the construction process within your factory unit sites, before we even get to the point of going to deliver these units to site and actually construct them. So these dashboard reports are a particularly strong area. As I mentioned, if you're looking to scale up your business, it's key to get a view of how your sites are performing, how your projects have been operating, how profitable they've been, where projects have gone wrong, in comparison to projects where you believe have gone right. All that information is absolutely key to drive your future projects. As they say, you're only as good as your last project, and systems like ours is there to give you the information you need to ensure that your next project is always going to be improved upon the last one. Thereby theory, the longer you use our system, the better project outcomes you will have. This insight reporting also gives you visibility over a certain process, such as valuations and retention fees that you may have pre-agreed or defined with certain clients or subcontractors, making sure those payments are made on time to you or you down the chain, to your subbies, make sure things aren't missed, and make you an efficient and effective and easy business to work with, from a client perspective or a subcontractor perspective. Only enhances your reputation as a business, makes your professionalism stand out in the crowd, is only going to help you win future work. So this is dashboard reporting. What I'm going to do now is just click on projects here and jump into a project just to show you our processes page. Now, if I just jump down here, you can see how our project process has been mapped in this particular project. It's called the Sattersfield Corner House project. And you can see functionality wise and from a interface point of view, these tabs along the top are very focused with information relevant to the whole company as a whole. And down the left-hand side here is linked to functionality and information that is related to this particular project. But the reason I'm on the processes tab here within this project is to show you the project process. Now you can see right at the bottom here, inquiry, moving up to construction. And if we move all the way to the end, the project completion certificate is the last step in this particular project before it would be deemed as complete. Now, from inquiry, the first step is the client contact. And each one of these steps going forward runs almost as a long pipeline end to end through these different stages until we get to the completion certificate. And by our implementation consultants will work with you to identify how this should be built to suit your business and the types of project you're involved in. One size isn't going to fit all. You may require several different templates of this to suit the different projects you're involved in. Perhaps that's where you're operating as a subcontractor with a main contractor, therefore it might be slightly more complex a process to go through. And likewise, if you're working on smaller unit size, it might be a far simpler and easier system to manage and project flow. So for each one of these stages and steps going forward, we can build a gate between them with different levels of approval. So for example, the O&M manual stage where we're at right now, if I just click on that, I can quickly see who's responsible for this particular stage, whether there's any digital forms that they must complete at this stage on behalf of the business. And I can see a list of tasks they need to work through and tick off as they're at this stage. And we can also support them and their work by adding documentation, images, maps, anything that you want to add on here information-wise to support this process and make sure they work as effectively as they can. Now, we can also see the progress of this particular stage, and that feeds into all the dashboards so we can quickly at a glance see where all our projects are currently staged. And if you look down here, you can see the space plan draft is halfway through, and the reason why that's still yet to be completed is because perhaps it's just not project critical. Therefore, we can leave tasks open in this flow to go back in time and complete. But if you wanted to, you could say, until this is 100% complete, I will not allow the project to move forward. And that's where you can get that big, strong approval gate in there. But what this is going to give you is to start to standardize the process in which you operate. For certain projects, you know you need them to go in a certain way. And this is where you can apply this template as you open the job up in the system. And this is going to give you a lot of control over your processes, particularly like getting products to site. You're going to make sure that this follows a particularly stringent route and set of markers and set of checks and set of inspections, and have the right amount of people and everything ticked off to make sure when you are delivering those units to site, absolutely everything's been covered, everything's ready, everyone's where they should be, and it goes as smooth as it can do. So this goes an awful long way to give businesses a lot more control over how their projects operate, how their people are already put in place. So a lot of resource planning goes into this. Also ensuring data is being collected by those teams on site as well by attaching digital forms to certain steps and stages of the project, and support them with the information that they need to be successful when they're there doing the work. So I dwell on this as this is quite a key part to how your projects as a business are going to flow. And as you can see above, there's a whole load of other workflows and processes we can build and help you manage more effectively, such as incident and accident investigation. Well, look, let's hope there's never an incident or accident in your projects, but if there was one, there is a workflow there to make sure it's managed effectively, make sure everybody who needs to be involved is informed, and it follows this process to essentially get things safe, back up and running, and prevent an unnecessarily long delay on site. So there's an awful lot of things we can put on top of this main process as well to support your business across the board. Now, if I jump down to the program of works now, so tied into that early stage of putting together the process of how your project's going to flow, you obviously want to take this a detail beyond now and start to put together the scheduling management around the tasks and how those tasks are going to be delivered on site. So we can create a Gantt chart view here to follow the flow of all these tasks throughout the project by creating milestones and preferred route between these tasks as well. So we can really map and manage how the project tasks are going to be completed, when they start, when they end. the duration and time that you're going to give to these tasks in your planning. And again, you're only as good as your last project. You can start to see perhaps how long it's taken on previous projects to complete certain tasks if they're quite similar type projects. And you can adjust these days accordingly to how long it's taken on previous projects, for example. For example, if your previous project you only gave, say, 10 days for materials delivery, but it took 2 weeks, and that's why this is now at 15 days. You can see there's a quick view of how far this has been completed from a percentage point of view. So giving you a quick view of progress on site and how things are operating. So you're certainly not working in the dark or waiting for a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly report from your site manager to let you know how far things have moved forward. You get this in real time live. You can also see how resources can be assigned. And if I go forward in the project now for a lot of the tasks that have yet to begin, you can see that we can start to map resources and assets to these tasks to ensure, again, we've got the right people on the right jobs at the right time. So delivering and assembling modular product on the site needs to be done quickly, effectively, without fuss. It needs to follow a pretty stringent set of process. It almost needs to act like clockwork, almost the cogs and the different parts, but all need being put in the right order at the right time is key to the success of modular construction on site. There can't be any time wasted, unnecessary delays. It's all fighting against time, the elements, having at times to close roads off to deliver these goods. You can't just take weeks at a time. It all has to be done quickly because also the interiors are open to the elements. So getting the site watertight is certainly what they're driving towards once they start putting up the first piece. So being able to map and really manage this level of detail for the project, particularly for the larger scale projects, allows companies to start on bigger projects because you can manage the detail and you can still ensure whether it's a 10 unit or 1,000 site that it's going to be successful. Now, financial wise, so alongside the planning of resources, tasks and assets is obviously the costs of this. So there's a lot of planning around estimating the right costs, making sure you've estimated the right level of material and labour to put this together, and any machinery, equipment or anything you need to hire is effectively organised and costed into the overall project. And if I just click on here in the quotes section, you can see how we can put together these costs within our system and share this with a prospective client. So you can share just a hyperlink with them and that gives them a link to an online quotation. You can adapt this particular document to decide what level of detail you share with your client. We can also factor in whether there's discount rates agreed, retention fees, payment terms that might have been contractually agreed with certain clients, suppliers or subcontractors. We can adjust our system to also suit a multitude of currencies and localized tax rates. And you can see that we can allow clients to accept or decline these particular orders live online. If we give the right level of detail and all the information they require, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to just quickly accept online, also to your T's and C's and refund policy, and drive quicker decisions from clients, again, preventing delays, allowing you to get on with the job and ultimately start procuring the goods. Now, if I just show you the financial dashboard, so each project managed within Archdesk will have its own unique financial dashboard. So this is now for this particular project, the Sattersfield Corner House project. This is giving me a high level overview now of how this project is operating. So I can see that we've exceeded the current budget for this particular project, and you can see the correlation between the value of this project and against current cost, giving me some anticipated profit margin. Now, a big part of analytics of how this project is operating is down to cost categories. So when these costs are being put together from an estimating or quotation perspective, we will give you the opportunity to build your own set of different categories where all your costs will eventually sit. So although there's only one labor category here, we can create a multitude of different labor categories to tie in with different sets, different crews, different types of people that you may utilize. And on the right here, you can see spend against budget. Now there's an awful lot of red here, which is highlighting we've spent over budget. But what we can allow you to do is, if you just click on the right hand side here and get a budget breakdown, this will now drill into this particular cost category, in this case, technical design fees. And I can now have a look at where this spend has occurred. I might want to drill down into that line item, as there's been a lot of invoices raised on those units. And it will actually take me now live into that quotation. I can have a look at that line item, have a look at those invoices, or I could even look at the activity log and see that Jay Morgan was the one that approved and created this quote. And perhaps I want to have a quick word with him or her over why we have overspent so dramatically on technical design fees. Now, there might be a valid reason as to why, or we might need to adjust the budget accordingly. We might even need to create a variation order to go up to the client because perhaps technical design fees have gone up unanticipated, or perhaps the client's changed the design so many times that that's why these fees have gone up. Therefore, the client could be culpable for those fees. Whatever the reason, the point is the system is going to capture it and show it to you and allow you to interrogate it. And by having these approval flows in place, as you can see at the top there, you can ensure that they are being managed to your process with your approval and ensure nothing's getting through that shouldn't be from a cost perspective. So it's giving you, particularly around ordering materials, let's say, far more control over which suppliers you're using, what price you're paying for which material and where you're getting it from. You can start to identify some trends in certain materials and what you're spending across the board, or you could take it a bit more formally and set up a formal tender process in our system out to your supply chain and allow interrogation of perhaps all your key suppliers and the pricing between all the regularly ordered materials you're going to need for construction. And you can even analyze the price for each material that each supplier is offering, and therefore do almost a bit of a buffet selection on which prices you're going to use by which material, by which supplier, therefore driving your costs down rather than linking it all to one supplier. Also, perhaps guaranteeing certain materials are going to be delivered based on previous relationships with certain suppliers that typically let you down over the course of certain projects you perhaps don't want to use again. Is also pretty easy with our contacts to jump into a particular supplier. So if I just click on the business contacts now and perhaps just select these guys as a supplier, I can quickly jump to the projects that we've previously worked with that supplier on, and I can see all the quotations and tenders that particular supplier was involved in, and ultimately get a gauge to what it's like to work with people. So this system does start to feed back to you as a business over what your relationships are like historically with certain clients, suppliers, and subcontractors, and give you the information you need to make more informed decisions going forward over who you choose to work with or accept work from. I've mentioned forms. As a business, there's a whole load of benefits to digitizing your forms. If we look at project level, particularly around the health and safety side of things, if I just bring up a accident incident form, we're very adept at being able to map your current paper version into a digital version like this, with all the fields that are the same in that paper format. Therefore, there can't be too many moans and groans from the guys on site, because ultimately it looks like the same form they've been filling out for years and years. It's just a digital version, but the benefit is once it's filled in and submitted, you can actually start to manage it to a process and workflow. So you can see here that once this is submitted and it's received by the health and safety manager, they need to sign it off before it can then start a new process to actually get out to site, inspect, certify, sign off, make that site safe again and get it back up and running. So forms is a huge part of communication and data collection. It can also drive trend analysis and that sort of insight reporting over how many incidents have been raised on certain sites historically, whether those incidents ended up in hospitalization. All these sorts of things can then be fed back to the original dashboard. And that sort of nicely brings me back to this page to tie up this session around whether anything's occurring across your projects, be it a change in cost, a change needed to personnel, a change needed to the timeframes of projects, a change to materials, any level of change that's occurring in real time across this project, and all your projects in general can be fed live into these dashboards. So nothing's getting missed, everything's visible, everything's transparent. Everybody who has access to this system is working to one source of truth. And that's what's going to really drive your business forward and allow you to become successful, have better project outcomes, higher profit margins, hopefully is the result of better project outcomes, increased reputation by being a good business to work with, easy to do business with and work for. Your payments are done on time, you receive your payments on time, you don't get caught into unnecessary disputes with certain people, certain clients, contractors, subcontractors, consultants, etc. There's an awful lot we can do for your business here at Archdesk. So it's really down to you to get in touch. We can set up a session with one of our sales consultants, start talking you through the process and start to identify and have an open and frank conversation with you about how you are currently operating, where you've got your challenges, how we can start to address them. And I'm sure through their work and understanding of your sector in particular, we can uproot shared issues across your sector in modular construction, and we can show you how we address those problems and have been addressing those problems for companies in your industry. We want to share this knowledge as some of your competitors now probably are using our products and benefiting from it. I highly recommend you give us a call and perhaps find out how they are benefiting from using Archdesk, our solutions and our platform. So thank you very much for today, for all of those that have attended. You should have been sent contact details for our business. Please in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Like I said, it's a non-committal session just to have a chat around your business need and see if we can't help you out as well. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.